If your job is convincing authorities to deliver quality education, yet your government is precarious, or doesn't like criticism, or is involved in violent conflict, or has clamped down on civil society advocacy, then how do you do your job effectively? Focusing on this question, education advocates in places like this came together in an action research process to learn from our own and each other's experience. Everyone involved was part of Education Out Loud, a global funding program supporting civil society advocacy on education. After analysing the conditions we work in, we formulated key messages to share with others doing civil society advocacy work in similar conditions. What makes education advocacy difficult in some settings? We experience a very wide range of challenging contexts in doing our work.
Difficult context varies with countries. In some other countries, issues to do with countries that are war-torn, countries that have got conflicts, countries that are ruled by authoritarian regimes. But also there are contexts where in the so-called democratic context, where you have governments actually, using the law to curtail the operation of civil society.
Nous sommes dans des contextes d'éducation d'urgence. Au Burkina Faso, nous avons 13 régions et sur les 13 régions, il y a 10 qui sont concernées par les attaques terroristes. Et avec plus de 6 000 salles de classe qui sont fermées, écoles qui sont fermées, plus d'1,5 million enfants qui ne vont plus à l'école et plus de 30 000 enseignants qui sont dans la rue.
As you know, Somalia has been in civil war since 1991, and there are civil unrest, terror act, clashes between clans. All these causes displacement to the community, and there are also disasters. There may be sometimes there's drought affected people, famine. Sometimes there is flooding. You need to start from zero for your advocacy that these children get education, and that is the main obstacle we had.
The different kind of governments, they do not want to cooperate with the education advocates, and they misunderstand the education advocate is interrupting their politics and their administration. So that's why this is really, this makes really difficult for the education advocates to do the advocacy work for the education.
In the countries that there are conflicts, you'll find that the governments that are there do not allow other voices that might want to criticize them or tell them what they should be doing. And that becomes an issue for civil society, because civil society is there to be able to bring issues to the government to say, this is what you've said in your policies, but this is not what you're doing. In such kind of situation, they will begin to put legislations in place to say, we will not allow you to do things based on what you're telling us. So they'll begin to put laws in place that will restrict our spaces to be able to do our advocacy. With such, it becomes very difficult for us to be able to operate within such kind of political environment that are such laws that you will have no access to the people you want to benefit from you. So it becomes very difficult to do such.
In my own experience, I think working in a context where there is so much polarization across the political divide, I think it has been difficult to actually get different parties or different players to actually agree, as whatever that you might say might be viewed with a little bit of suspicion.
How can lessons from our experience help others working in similar places? We formulated 5 key messages. 1. Understand power relations. 2. Build civil society alliances. 3. Craft advocacy strategies carefully. 4. Build trust with government. 5. Protect civic space. Number 1. Understand power relations by conducting power analysis and power mapping.
Well, the key messages we have been discussing have got to do with how we should map the power dynamics within the areas that we operate in. And that also enables us to identify, I think, particular power holders, whether they be informal or non-informal. And in our context, I think we have done it through identifying strategic donor partners who are also in good relations with the government of the day.
Mapping power is quite important in that you deliberately know who to target for what you want to influence. And in my country, for example, how we have done it is that we have, in influencing a certain piece of policy with Parliament, we have actually engaged, both the ruling party and the opposition party in Parliament, and targeting the chief whips and explain to them why it is important to have that particular policy, sailing through Parliament. And the debates that then came out after engaging the chief whips, it quietly sailed, and they all agreed.
I think it is also important to be critical of our power mapping and the actors, the stakeholders that we're currently leaving out of our power maps. In my context, I think if we are to bring about any meaningful change or any kind of education reform, especially at the rural level, it is very important to talk about how feudal structures inhibit progress in education and how that interacts with patriarchy.
Number 2. Build civil society alliances to make the advocacy effort more strategic, thorough, and effective.
We've been talking about the strategic alliance, how we can build relationship with the government and relationship with the civil society actors, local education groups, and the way we can influence education policy planning and education policy change and implementation.
One of the main message was that education advocates should actually build strong alliances and use it to pull together resources to do policy influencing and implementation of those policies.
L'acteur engagé dans le plaidoyer n'est pas doté d'expérience et des outils qui lui permettent de mener ses activités de plaidoyer. Mais aussi, il faut avoir des stratégies et savoir qui sont les partenaires avec qui vous allez pour mener votre activité de plaidoyer. Il faut également se dire que la personne envers qui vous partez, est-ce que vous pourrez arriver à le convaincre? Et sinon, quelles sont les stratégies que vous allez développer pour arriver à l'amener à se ranger dans votre position? Mais également, dans une autre manière, est-ce que vous allez également développer des approches pour avoir des alliés qui soit sont de votre organisation, qui peuvent être des médias, qui peuvent être des personnes ressources, qui peuvent être des personnalités politiques ou des partenaires techniques et financiers, qui peuvent également vous appuyer dans votre processus de plaidoyer pour une thématique ou bien un problème bien précis.
Bills landed into law because of the movement and organization of these strong alliances. In the Philippines, for example, we have a loose coalition of child's right advocates working together for a passage of learners with disability law. And so, working with that kind of alliance, we are ensured that this coalition would have a steady number of legislators who would co-sponsor or co-author the bill for the learners with disability. Some other members of this alliance are from international CSOs and international NGOs who have more money, who can fund focus group discussions, research, gathering evidences to provide for the basis of the policies. For us, for example, we also have resources and expertise in doing position statements and press media releases. Some other organizations also help in hyping the call for learners with disabilities in education. So they use their social media campaigns and platforms to support the policy influencing. So technically it worked in the Philippines, so it could work in some other areas.
Number 3, craft advocacy strategies carefully, involving a range of methods and actors, adapting and learning as you go.
So it is really important to look at the context that is very much changing consistently in the fragile and conflict-affected context, and to take the opportunities like that arise and that may last very momentarily. All those strategies may not produce the favorable result that we are looking for. And sometimes it might be important to choose one strategy after the other, and at the end, when we achieve the outcome of our advocacy initiatives, it may look like the strategy that we applied at the end is producing the result. But in fact, it might be the incremental outcome of a number of strategies that we have applied. So in this context, it is very important to be persistent and to have some patience and to try to continue exploring different strategies and continue applying them.
I will make an example of a campaign we conducted as a coalition around the provision of free primary education in the country. Free primary education is provided for in the national constitution, but government was reluctant to implement that provision. Therefore, as a coalition, we started our campaign by capacitating the media, communities, and the general public, because we wanted to raise awareness about the provision, since people seemed not to be aware that it was a right that government had to provide for our children. So building the capacity also helped to get the support of people, including ordinary people from grassroots communities. So we organized meetings and campaigns, regional, starting from regions, with parents, with communities, with church leaders, and that strategy helped because when we started the campaign, holding meetings with government, which were not successful, we conducted protests, especially being led by the teachers' unions. Even that failed because the police disrupted us. But after seeing that that was not working, as a coalition, we did resource mobilization for strategic litigation.
In this advocacy's main message from our side that we need to engagement. Engagement is most important, and if we can using the social media or electronic or print media is our advocacy, it could be very useful for us.
So before they advocate to the respected government, they collect like dropout rates in conflict area, and also the child labor rates, and also the education emergency. So this is very important. So after they collected their information, they had a spread meeting with the federal government, and they provided information. But they are not educating the government, but also sharing what is reality in the context. And then they had a spread meeting with other conflict sides, but it's not going well. So that's why they think the community should be the key actors to handle these two sides. So they had a spread meeting with the community and also provide their evidence-based information. So in this way, the community had capacity and also the awareness what is really happening in our education, especially the children are losing the rights to education. So now community are started to handle between two sides and approach to the conflict side.
Number 4. Build trust with government over the long term, so as to gain influence.
We have been able to come up with a statement to be able to advise our colleagues that are working in such context of military and regime that may not be listening to the civil society. What we are advising them is that we find it very more effective that you don't become radical, you don't confront the government, because if you do that, they will likely close the civil space that you have. What you do, build alliances with them, let them trust you, be able to give evidence, and once you do that, they will trust you and they will be able to work with you within your system.
Em relação às mensagens que nós discutimos no grupo, olhando para a questão de envolvimento com o trabalho com o governo, nós passamos a mensagem que é importante haver uma colaboração conjunta com o Ministério. O tipo de advocacia que nós fazemos, muitas das vezes dita aquilo que é a relação nossa com o governo. Então, é importante que haja essa comunicação, que haja essa articulação e que haja também um envolvimento do governo nas ações que nós, como sociedade civil, realizamos. Não só exigir a prestação de contas do lado do governo, mas nós também, como organizações da sociedade civil, temos que prestar contas, de certa forma, do trabalho que nós estamos a fazer. Porque, no final, o que nós queremos influenciar é a melhoria das políticas no setor da educação.
It's not easy to be able to build such alliances because, one, if you don't become careful, they will suck you into their own trap and you'll not be able to achieve your goals or what you want to do. So what we also tell our other colleagues that are working in such is that be able to give evidence, be able to be clear, and do your work. They'll be able to come to you and trust you. You know, being able to say you would want to do such thing in a quick time is not realistic. You will have to allow yourself in better programming, let them trust your activities, bring them closer to you, in, for example, in monitoring of your activities, let them come to your meetings, explain yourself to them. They'll be able to help you in solving part of those problems too.
E existe diálogo a nível mais político, que é um número limitado de organizações da sociedade civil, que muitas das vezes é o secretariado e o conselho de direção que participam, que também é uma grande oportunidade para nós discutirmos aquilo que é a agenda de educação. E uma particularidade é que nesses grupos que existem ao nível do Ministério estão também os parceiros. Então está a sociedade civil, estão os parceiros e está o próprio Ministério da Educação. Então, muitas das questões mais políticas que influenciam todo o conjunto do funcionamento do setor da educação são discutidos nesse encontro e nós temos esta participação. E um outro mecanismo também é que existem alguns encontros que são políticos, sim, e envolvem um diferente conjunto de organizações, do próprio governo, parceiros, e há um momento em que a sociedade civil apresenta o seu posicionamento. Embora a gente tenha esta coordenação conjunta, esta comunicação pacífica dentro do nosso posicionamento, nós apresentamos aquilo que é a nossa opinião, entanto que sociedade civil, sobre o estágio da educação. Falamos dos aspectos positivos e tocamos também aqueles aspectos que nós achamos que merecem uma melhor intervenção por parte do governo. Então, não é porque estamos lá, somos parceiros, que não temos que dizer, de facto, como é que as coisas estão e devem funcionar. Nós estamos lá e falamos como é que as coisas devem funcionar, mas buscamos uma linguagem pacífica e uma advocacia de diálogo, não de confronto.
Number 5. Protect civic space against repressive legislation and suppression tactics, to maintain the freedoms necessary for conducting advocacy.
I think civic space itself offers a space for us to do social accountability mechanisms where we hold our governments, accountable to what they would have promised, the people, to say we are going to do A, B, C, D. So once that civic space is shrunk, or once it is curtailed, then citizens are no longer, free to do that. And CSOs, which usually speak on behalf of citizens, may now not be able to be in a position to make sure that there is social accountability on the part of the government. So it is critical that, the civic space is open for civil society and for the people to actually, hold their government to account. It is one of the values of democracy.
I think with the rise of online spaces, we tended to bank more on the online spaces for advocacy because it became easier and there were lesser hurdles to engage with. However, we've been seeing that there's a rise of surveillance online too. Organizations or movements that engage very closely with human rights issues have their accounts deleted and so many, months of data lost. But also many movements recently have had to hide the identities of their, very prominent activists and advocates because they would receive death threats.
In Zimbabwe, there was a process of introducing the private voluntary organization bill, according to my view, which was going to actually, curtail the civic space because, it was actually asking civil society to actually sort of report to the government and also, ban certain activities by civil society, and that would have curtailed the civic space. But rather than condemning the government, we sat down as heads of coalitions and analyzed the bill and actually sought audience with the government. We were given audience with the president, and we presented our case, and the president then, assigned the Attorney General's office to look into the issue that we were raising and revise the bill. And it is our hope that the bill will be revised.
And what do we do to keep ourselves and our organizations safe?
Self-censorship.
Keep careful company.
Use online, offline strategical.
Withdraw or desist when unsafe.
Proactive maximum transparency.
Ajustez votre ton de manière appropriée.
Communiquer en ayant des positions neutres.
Engage powerful allies.
Be evidence-based, technical, not political.
Stand your ground, be convincing.
Set up early warning systems.
Use other organizations and actors as your protective umbrella.